Hey guys, it's me, Samantha Clark. I'm going to just let you guys know what I shoot with at weddings on a regular basis. A lot of times you see pictures and you're wondering, okay, what did she use? How did she do it? How did she create it? So I'm going to give you guys the full scoop. So let's dive in. I start my wedding day with getting ready photos. So that's when the bride is getting dressed or the groom is getting dressed. There's a lot of candid moments. There's also a lot of details like the shoes and the jewelry, the rings, stuff like that. So I'm gonna show you what I use for that. I actually am using the 50mm to film this, so I'm not gonna show that to you. But I also shoot a lot of details with the 85mm. This is the 85mm. It is not an L series lens, but it does a great job. It's very small and compact. It is very handy for detail shots. And because it is a prime lens, meaning it's a fixed focal length at 85, I can really get some really tack sharp images. So the 85mm is what I use when I'm shooting smaller details. This is the 100mm 2.8 lens, and I shoot the rings with this, and sometimes I shoot jewelry or smaller items that I'd like to show all of the details. Some of the things that you might need a little bit more of a wider lens. If the bride is getting her dress on, for example, I like to use the 24-70. This lens is so versatile, and to be honest with you, I could shoot with the 24-70 all day if I wanted to. It gets wide enough to where you can get some of those shots that you wouldn't be able to get with an 85, and it zooms in and out, so I have the flexibility to shoot at various focal lengths. So this is a keeper. The ceremony's happening. I like to shoot the ceremony from a variety of different points. This, my friend, this is the 70-200mm lens. This one I love for wedding ceremonies. During a wedding ceremony, you don't want to be in the way. So what I like to do with the 70-200 is I zoom in, I capture details of the wedding ceremony, I capture reactions. It really does a great job of allowing me to stay back, but still capture moments as they happen in the ceremony. For me as a wedding photographer, this has been a game changer. It really allows me the versatility to, once again, to capture things as they happen. The 35mm also does a good job of capturing a wide angle as opposed to a zoomed in angle of the ceremony. So that's also a really great lens. The portrait time. So that's the time when you're working with family, bridal party, bride and groom. These moments, I like to use prime lenses. These are my favorites for capturing portraits. It does a really good job of making sure that there's tack sharp focus. That's one of the qualities that I love about having a prime lens on my camera for portraits. I also sometimes use the 70-200 for portraits. I definitely think that the 70-200 does this beautiful bokeh effect of the background, and it just makes things look dreamy. Now let's talk about the reception. The reception is usually the time of day when things are happening without my control. I don't get to direct any of it. And so I like to be prepared for just about anything. So once again, I will use my 70-200 lens, and I love it for, the entrances of the bride and groom coming in. I also like it to capture wide shots of the first dance. To be honest, guys, let me just make it clear that all these lenses are just tools. You as a photographer are trying to find the best tools to tell a certain story. But this is sort of how I approach the wedding day so that I can tell a story of my brides and grooms. This is the Holdfast Gear Skinny Moneymaker in black leather. I usually wear this from start to finish. I also like it because I'm allowed to not only have my cameras at both sides of me, but I also am able to hook things onto these rings here, which I usually put keys on, sunglasses. I don't want to miss a moment because I'm in my bag trying to change a lens. So I like having two cameras so that I feel like I'm able to capture things in the moment. I just try to be prepared at all times because weddings, there's no do-overs. None. So I'll go into some of the other questions that you guys sent in to me through Instagram so that I can answer all your questions in one video. What do you recommend as a beginner? Full frame, maybe 60 Mark II from a crop. The 60 is a good camera. I personally think that you have to, start where you're at. You have to use whatever budget you have and go there. If you have the budget, go for a full frame camera. I started out with a crop sensor and then I upgraded to a full frame camera, and to be honest, when I had the crop sensor, my clients couldn't tell the difference. I was making use of the equipment that I had at that time with the budget that I had at that time. So, start where you're at and don't let your equipment stop you from doing what you want to do. When using your flash, what diffuser do you use? I will remind you guys that I do have a lighting course where I dive into this a little more deeper, but I can give you the quick version. Let's start with Magmod. So I mentioned my flashes and I mentioned Magmod. This is the MagSphere. I also use the MagGrid, which allows you to have a more focused beam of light from the flash. The MagSphere really helps with shooting the light out in all directions and diffusing it nicely. So those are the two items that I use from Magmod, and then they attach to the camera. I also use something called an S-bracket with a Bowens mount. This is the S-bracket, and I have a flash in it right now so you can see what it looks like. The Bowens mount is this area on the outside where you can attach an umbrella on the outside. This attaches to the front of the S-bracket and it clicks into place. That's how you know it's set. And then when you want to release it, you just go like that. This goes on the inside of the umbrella. It's attached, and then there's this little diffuser on the inside, and you can attach this second diffusing piece to the front. This is really helpful when you are shooting portraits and you just want to have a different look to them. And this one is actually very affordable. I love that. I do have a lighting course. I want you guys to check it out. It is 50% off right now, and I go into a little bit more detail about natural light, flash, and all the different things that I use to create beautiful images. So if you want to check that out, here's a link that you can visit. There's a link also in the bio of my Instagram page. If you want to check that out, go for it. Do you use any OCF outside? Good question. This is basically the same setup I would use outside if I wanted to. I would use the umbrella, or I would use the Magmod system. So yes, I do use OCF outside. OCF, for those who don't know, means off-camera flash. Off-camera flash meaning the flash is not on camera, it's off camera. What is your most used lens? My most used lens by far is the 50mm. The 50mm is my favorite. It just creates a beautiful dreamy effect for portraits. It's almost on my camera almost all the time. I also really like being able to shoot wide open at 1.2, which you can do with the 50mm, and it's sort of a signature of my work, and so I just love it. All right guys, those are all the questions. You guys can always send me a message if you have follow-up questions. Leave a comment if there's anything that you'd like me to help you with. I'd be happy to answer your questions. All right guys, that's all for today. I will talk to you soon. Bye.